Welcome to the 24/7 Sports YouTube page. It is officially week 1. We have some football this weekend, and here to talk about it, Brad Crawford and Chris Hummer. Guys, we're going to pick 10 of the biggest games this weekend, starting with a Thursday night one. Penn State and Purdue. Right now, Penn State 3.5-point favorites. Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, big game to open the Big Ten slate. Penn State has won its last 4 games against Purdue by at least 24 points. Purdue's 20-8 against the spread as an underdog under Jeff Brom. So we're kind of battling 2 numbers here in Vegas. I'm going Purdue on the money line as one of my big week 1 upsets. I think Thursday night in West Lafayette, the Boilermakers get it done against the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I have to go the opposite direction of you, Brad. I like Penn State to cover. I really like Penn State this year. I think they're undervalued. They should have been ranked in the preseason AP Top 25. I think they're going to be a 9 or 10 win team by season's end, and they get it started the right way against Purdue. Purdue was really bad defensively last year. And I think with a healthy Sean Clifford and a better offensive line for Penn State's really going to be able to move the ball. And Purdue's strength, pushing the ball through the air, is also Penn State's strength defensively. I think that secondary, even after losing 2 starters, is going to be excellent this year. And I like Penn State to start the season off right with a big win.
Another one on Thursday night, the Backyard Brawl is officially back. We've got Pitt as 7-point favorites over West Virginia. Chris, we'll start with you. Who are you picking?
I won't lie, I don't have a great read in this game, so I don't know how much I would listen to me folks out there at home. I have West Virginia covering by the slightest of margins, and Pitt ended up winning the game. But I do like West Virginia a little bit more than most people in this game, specifically because of their offensive line. They return every starter from that unit, which helps mitigate the strength of Pittsburgh's defensive front. And frankly, I just have a lot of questions about what Pittsburgh is going to look like offensively. I think they're going to be okay with Keaton Slovis as quarterback, but anytime you lose Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison in the same offseason, it's a pretty big blow. Pat Narduzzi might get a little conservative, which I think can keep West Virginia in the game, especially with Graham Harrell calling plays and West Virginia moving to the air raid. So I like West Virginia to cover here.
So I was worried, Chris, that you and I would have all the games the same in week 1, but once again, man, we are different on this game. I like Pitt. You know, Pitt was 10-4 against the spread last season, 5th best mark in college football. Panthers manage, I think, the 3rd most sacks in the nation. Most of those guys are back along that, fierce defensive front. Backyard Brawl to open the season is great for college football fans, great for media members alike. I'm taking Pitt to cover at home, a team that I think is flying under the radar a bit, inside that top 20 nationally, coming off that ACC championship.
Cincinnati coming off a college football playoff appearance. They're now underdogs in their opener against Arkansas. The Hogs 6-point favorites. Brad, who are you picking?
So this is my week 1 lock of the week. I am hammering Arkansas -6. I've seen the line come down to 5 in some spots. Look, I think Arkansas is a team that can win 9 or 10 games this season. I love what Sam Pittman's bringing back in year 3. KJ Jefferson, really solid quarterback, was able to get a former 5-star transfer in Drew Sanders, from Alabama to kind of headline that defense. And Cincinnati's a team that replaces its top running back, its top quarterback, its offensive coordinator, 8 other NFL draft picks. So Cincinnati's a team that I am not picking to get back to the playoff or the New Year's 6. I like Arkansas big at home covering that 6-point spread.
Yeah, I agree with Brad here. Maybe not big, but I do like Arkansas to cover. I was talking to somebody at Arkansas this week, and they're even a little unsure what Cincinnati's going to look like defensively with all the pieces they lost off that unit. And we saw the best 2 Cincinnati teams of the last 20 years, the last 2 seasons. There's going to be a little bit of regression, and I think Arkansas is a really tough test for that team the first week of the year. I think Arkansas, the win-loss column might not reflect it, but I think Arkansas is one of the 20 most talented teams in the country. They're just going to have a brutal schedule, but I do like Arkansas to get the season right, started off right. And I think KJ Jefferson's going to have a huge game for Arkansas to start his Heisman campaign off the right way.
The Dan Lanning revenge game right now. Oregon, huge underdogs in their opener against Georgia. The Dogs are 17.5-point favorites. Chris, who are you picking?
I like Oregon to cover here. I don't know how many people out there agree with me. I've seen a lot of big Georgia picks, but I think Oregon is in position to cover. They have the offensive line to match up with Georgia up front. That is a very rare thing outside the SEC for somebody to be able to match up with Georgia. I think Oregon can do that. Bo Nix people have a lot of opinions about him, but I think he's a steadying presence in this game for Oregon, especially with young skill talent at tight end and wide receiver for Oregon. I think Oregon's going to be able to move the ball on the ground and stay in the game throughout. And most importantly, Dan Lanning has seen everything Georgia's had the last couple of seasons. If anybody's going to scheme for Georgia and keep it close against Georgia, it's Dan Lanning. And I like Oregon to do just enough to cover here.
You make a very, great point about Dan Lanning knowing Georgia's scheme. 8 new defensive starters there. Georgia playing at MERCEDES-BENZ Stadium for the 3rd time in 4 games. We might as well call the Falcon Stadium Sanford Stadium Junior because Georgia's always playing there. But, they know the atmosphere. They know the field. I think Stetson Bennett plays well in this game. Not really sold on Oregon's defensive front after losing Kayvon Thibodeau. They got some stud linebackers there, but Georgia 17.5. I like Georgia to cover in this game. Sort of a 31-10 maybe type score. Give me Georgia laying the points.
The defending Pac-12 champs Utes are 2.5-point favorites at Florida. Brad, who are you picking?
Probably the toughest game to call for me in week 1, Emily. On one hand, I feel Utah is the better team given the Utes, what they have coming back. I think 16 starters on a team that won the Pac-12, made the Rose Bowl. But that being said, we've seen what West Coast teams do against SEC teams with speed. SEC teams often win out in that scenario. Long trip to the muggy swamp. I do like Utah. The more I look at this game, I think Cameron Rising plays well into the 4th quarter, and Utah is able to win the game.
Yeah, I picked Utah to go to the college football playoff, so I have to pick Utah to win this game. This is my favorite game of the week. Anthony Richardson, Cameron Rising, 2 of the most underrated quarterbacks in the country. This is going to be a fantastic matchup, but I like Utah to cover here. Florida's biggest bugaboo last season was the inability to tackle, and few teams hit you in the mouth on the ground like Utah will. And Cameron Rising's also a sneaky run threat. He was first among quarterbacks last year in average rushing yards per carry in the Power 5. So they can really attack you on the ground. And while I think Florida's going to get better as the season goes along, I believe in Billy Napier and his staff. I think this is a game Utah wins early, and they make a statement that's going to reverberate deep into the season when you talk about the college football playoff.
The largest spread you guys are picking here, Alabama, 37.5-point favorites over Utah State. Chris, did the Tide cover?
Yeah, these are always coin toss games, but I think Alabama does cover here. Utah State allowed 7 yards per carry on the ground last week against UConn, which is not a good sign when you're about to go up against Alabama. I think Alabama's going to be able to stay basic. They're going to run the football, not show a lot a week ahead of Texas, and still roll past Utah State. I like Alabama to win big. I have it 52-10 with Alabama covering.
Yeah, get out and stay healthy. That should be the motto for Alabama in week 1. One of the reasons this game was on the dock is because I felt bad for not including the preseason number 1 in our top 10. We've got to see what Alabama does opening weekend, right? So, look, I have no idea how Utah State's going to block Will Anderson. No idea how they're going to put a man on Dallas Turner. Those guys could both combine for 5.5 to 6 sacks in this game. I think Bama closed this one out by halftime, and I think Alabama could even pitch a shutout. So lay the 37.5 points and go ahead and lock this in. Bama rolls.
We've got a showdown in the Lone Star State. Houston, 5.5-point favorites over UTSA. Brad, what say you?
Yeah, Houston's a team that I picked to be the best team in the G5 ranks throughout this season. Make it to the Cotton Bowl, in fact, according to our 24/7 Sports preseason bowl projection. So I'm really high on Cougars and what Dana Holgerson's team brings back. But they can't get there with a loss to UTSA. So give me Clayton Tune in that offense, scoring just enough points to kind of win that game in the 4th quarter. Lay those 5.5 points and cover against UTSA.
Yeah, I think this is a match of 2 of the best group of 5 teams in the country, without much question. But I do like Houston in this game to cover. I think the difference here is UTSA finished 105th nationally in passing yards allowed per game. That was the one weakness of the team a year ago. And I don't know how much better that secondary is going to be for UTSA. And that's a problem against Houston's passing attack. Brad mentioned Clayton Tune. I think he's going to be one of the most productive quarterbacks in the country. He's got some real weapons on the outside. And I think Houston does just enough in this game to cover and start their season off the right way.
From the group of 5 to 2 top 5 matchups here, Ohio State is 16.5-point favorites over Marcus Freeman's debut as a Notre Dame head coach. Chris, who are you picking?
Yeah, Marcus Freeman might not be aware of the spread, but I think the rest of us have been. Ohio State is a huge favorite in this game, and that might surprise some people given where these two teams are ranked. But I think it's justified. We've seen how Notre Dame has performed in games against top 5 opponents in the college football playoff era. They're 1-6 with their only win coming against a Trevor Lawrence-less Clemson during the COVID season. And I like Ohio State to cover here. I just don't think Notre Dame has the skill weapons to keep up with Ohio State. I think Tyler Buchner making his first start ever against Ohio State is a really difficult proposition. And I also think Notre Dame's secondary at cornerback specifically could be a problem against what is the best group of wide receivers in college football. This might be close for a half, but I think ultimately Ohio State pulls away and covers in this game.
This is one of Week 1's most anticipated games, obviously 2 preseason national title contenders. However, Notre Dame is one of my most overrated teams entering the season. I'm picking Ohio State to win out, be unbeaten as a number 2 seed in the playoff, and win it all over Bama in the final. So, hey, I've got to take Ohio State to win big here. I think C.J. Stroud is rightfully the preseason Heisman frontrunner entering the season. Has a bunch of studs around him to throw it to. And Travion Henderson, he's a guy who could easily rush for, 150 plus and a couple scores in this game. So just like Chris said, this game's going to be close for maybe 2.5 quarters, before Ohio State's depth. And I think their overall talent advantage weighs out, and Ohio State wins this game 41-17-ish.
Well, no Carrie Underwood intro here, but we got some Sunday night football. LSU 3.5-point favorites over Florida State. Chris, who are you picking?
Yeah, I really like LSU here, and I might end up looking silly because we know so little about what LSU is going to look like this year. But I do believe in one thing, and that's LSU's front four is among the best in the country. They are loaded up front defensively. And Florida State's bugaboo, really, since the end of the Jimbo Fisher era, has been the inability to block on the outside. They looked okay last week against Duquesne. They obviously ran the ball very effectively, but it's an entirely different beast against LSU in the SEC. I like LSU here to cover. I think I have it 31-24 in favor of the Tigers. I don't think it much matters who starts at quarterback for LSU. I think Jaden Daniels is going to have an excellent game. And I just think LSU has too much skill on the outside and too much depth along the line of scrimmage for Florida State to hang on here.
Yeah, I saw a stat today, Chris, that said college football teams playing their second game of the season, facing a team playing their first game, have lost 58% of the time against the spread the following week. So, Brian Kelly saying FSU has an advantage having played last week. LSU has an advantage having not played. I think he's sort of right on both accounts, but this does not set up well for Florida State. That stat right there, in my opinion, should stiff arm any notion that FSU has an advantage here. I like LSU by a touchdown, like you said. There are some suspension issues in that backfield with John Emery missing the first 2 weeks, but I think LSU has enough depth back there to be able to run the football. Jaden Daniels makes some plays late, and LSU wins that game by a single possession.
Week 1 wrapping up on Monday night. Clemson 21-point favorites over Georgia Tech. Brad, who are you picking?
Yeah, I think as college football fans, we're super lucky to have a full slate Thursday night, Saturday, a game Sunday night, and one on Monday night to, conclude that 5-day football fest weekend. I like Clemson in this game. Clemson's a team that I picked to be the number 4 seed in the playoff at the end of the season, and whether it's DJ Uiagalelei or Cade Klubnik, the 5-star freshman, in the second half of this game, I think both quarterbacks are going to play, and both are going to play well against a Georgia Tech team that, let's face it, Jeff Collins, at the end of the year, he's likely doomed as head coach. So lay 3 touchdowns and, feel pretty good about it. Clemson wins going away.
Yeah, this is my lock of the week, and I really like Clemson to cover here. Clemson won this game tight last year. I think it was 14-8. I think Clemson's defense is about the same as we saw a year ago. I don't expect Georgia Tech to be able to move the ball at all against what will be one of the best defensive units in the country. I think offensively is where Clemson separates here. Even if DJU struggles, which is a possibility, Cade Klubnik's going to come in. I think Clemson's going to push the ball downfield against a pass defense that was one of the worst in the country last year. Georgia Tech's run defense was 90th in terms of yards allowed per play last year. They got worse because they lost a couple key pieces to the transfer portal. I think Georgia Tech's really going to struggle in this game, and Clemson runs away with this one.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll make sure to revisit this next week to see how you both did. And be sure to like and subscribe and share the 24/7 Sports YouTube page. Enjoy the action.